Hello, I'm Nivedita Mukherjee. My colleague Ruchika Chitravanshi and I spoke to the National Health Authority CEO R.S. Sharma a day after Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched the Digital Health ID. This is what he had to say on the new initiative, the COVID vaccination certificate controversy, and more. Listen in. Hello, Mr. Sharma.
Yes, yes.
So many congratulations. The Prime Minister launched the digital health card yesterday. And so what is the journey like from here?
Well, after the launch of the Honorable Prime Minister, I think the decks have been cleared for its rollout for the entire nation. Till now, it was limited to 6 union territories, and that of course did not include Delhi and Jammu and Kashmir, for example. So that now will get extended. So therefore, the job of rolling out multiple facilities on the platform will begin, which means the teleconsultation, the direct doctors registry, the registry of the health facilities, and the laboratories registry. These things will get accelerated now.
It was announced last year on Independence Day, and it was launched in September 2021. Why did it take this long?
It's a new kind of paradigm which is using digital for delivery of health services. And obviously, you have to create a number of standards for this and test them as pilot. So basically, for example, the personal health record standards, that's one part. Then, of course, figuring out how to use the consent artifact for sharing the digital health records with doctors, creating that. Then, of course, creating sandbox for various kinds of applications to board on the platform. So there's a lot of proof of concept and pilots which were required to be done.
Since it was such a long pilot, there may have been some issues there, and so have you been able to resolve?
No, there have been no issues. Let me put it this way. It is not, this is proving the technology. Also, remember that many things like the personal health record structure, the standards in the health, the standards in teleconsultation, many things had got to be sorted out. The consent artifact, the account aggregators, the HIMS, the health information management systems of the hospitals. So there are multiple pieces, and they are all have to be integrated and synergized together to basically operate and make the whole flow happen. So that I think has been one of the things which we have been doing. And let me give you an Aadhaar example. When we started Aadhaar was started in July of 2009. And the first Aadhaar was issued on 29th of September 2010. So it took full 15 months to issue the first Aadhaar number because we were doing a lot of proof of concepts. We were, proving the technology and stuff like that. So this is not something unusual. This is, has happened. Secondly, on the UT side, obviously the UTs are also far-flung areas, smaller areas. So I think the whole idea was that if we can do it in UT, rest of the country rollout will be relatively easier and faster. So this is the broad sort of reason, if I may use that term.
Since you mentioned Aadhaar, there are privacy concerns that people have raised earlier. Ruchika, you may have something to ask there.
So there are two concerns, and both sort of relate to Aadhaar. One, as Nivedita said, there are privacy concerns that there is no data protection law, there's no independent authority for data protection. So how will it impact the digital health ID data? And the second is that we already have a centralized unique ID system, which was not mandatory to begin with, but it is quite, it's required for most welfare schemes. So what will be the future of the health ID?
On the first part, let me say that Aadhaar, just because there is no data protection law, does not mean that all the welfare projects of this country should stop. I mean, that's really a very preposterous argument. I don't agree with that argument, right? That's one part. Secondly, privacy is a fundamental right, as has been mandated by the Honorable Supreme Court. And Aadhaar was examined on the touchstone of that particular part, whether it violates privacy or not. And Aadhaar was done on 2009 and 10. And we had made privacy as a part of the design of Aadhaar. And therefore, to all those fellows who were talking data privacy, wasn't it a big blow when the Honorable Supreme Court in 2018 decided that Aadhaar did not violate that fundamental right? Isn't it? So this Honorable Supreme Court, which is the highest court of the land, has decided that Aadhaar does not violate privacy, which is a fundamental right. So that much for the those people who are raising concerns about privacy. Number one, not that privacy is not important. Privacy is extremely important, and we take privacy by extremely seriously. The entire thing here in the health systems, it's even more sensitive data than the normal interaction, because it's a health related data. So therefore, the entire architecture is based on what is called consent of the owner of the data, which is the patient. So no data is shared without patient's consent, number one. Number two, no data is collated and collected at a central facility. So it's not as if that you went to Apollo and you showed and you created a record in Apollo, then thereafter you went to Max Hospital, then the entire data will be fetched and kept in the central registry or whatever. There's no central registry. What we call federated data structure. So the data remains wherever it is. It is essentially made visible or is able to be fetched by the patient himself at his own authority. So therefore, there is no concern of privacy. We have taken care of that issue, that it's a consent-based architecture, number one. Number two, there is Aadhaar, unique health ID, like Aadhaar, is not mandatory. It is voluntary. So therefore, there is again no consent, no concept of sort of mandatory and violation of privacy. Thirdly, wherever the government is basically spending money and providing subsidy to somebody, Aadhaar is mandatory, because Aadhaar ensures that there are no duplicates, ghosts, fakes, etc. And that, I think, is not only the right but also the duty of the government to ensure that the benefits are being provided to a real person, not twice to him and not to an imaginary person, because it's after all taxpayers' money. So therefore, government under Section 7 of the Aadhaar Act, it can make Aadhaar compulsory for provision of the health services. So for example, in Ayushman Bharat, we are making Aadhaar compulsory. We have already made Aadhaar compulsory. So that will continue to happen, and it's absolutely according to the law. But those who do not want any assistance, they are certainly able to create health ID without Aadhaar, using some other mobile number in case they want health ID. That's one part. Health ID, if you don't want, that is also not a problem, because that's not required. So one, nothing is compulsory. Two, nothing is based on Aadhaar is also not compulsory if it is not a subsidy, right? And thirdly, it is the patient who is the malik and owner of the data. Without his consent, data does not flow anywhere.
So, Mr. Sharma, you're saying it's not compulsory, it's voluntary. But moving forward, how universal do you think this digital health card will become if it is not compulsory?
Aadhaar became universal because Aadhaar provides facility and benefits to people, and therefore Aadhaar is like an expressway. So Aadhaar is the only digital identity, and digital identity is paperless, presenceless. You can prove you can direct Aadhaar to transfer your electronic KYC for opening a bank account, for buying mutual funds, and which is actually a absolutely hassle-free and painless system. So the the health ID will become popular not because it is compulsory. It will become popular because it will offer huge amount of facilities. For example, a way to integrate your health record, to show your health record to the doctor. You can go paperless and you can just show to the doctor, and you can do lots of other things like booking teleconsultation, doc booking consultation with the doctor, getting medicines, etc., which you can get even now also. So that's not really something which is, but this will make systems interoperable. So please understand there is a difference, and actually people generally don't get that difference. That's a sad part. Today also you have lot of, for example, you have some systems which deliver medicines to you, right? And they can prescribe, prescriptions also. They can do other kinds of things also. Now, what is important is that here will be a system where you may use any front-end applications, and it will actually make every underlying facility available to you. So it's like saying that you may use Uber application, and still the Ola taxis will be available to you, something like that. Currently, you can get Uber taxis, Uber application. So it's a silo. It's a one vertical structure. Now this particular network which is coming is going to actually open this whole thing through interoperability and through protocols, and that is why we are calling it universal health interface. Similar to UPI, if you see UPI unbundled the payments from the banks, right? Previously, you had let's say SBI ka ek application hai. You were just using SBI application to do the transactions on SBI. Today, the application may not belong to any bank, and still you can transact and you can couple many banks, you can link many banks. So this is like a protocol. So this is going to be a protocol-based network where many to many connections will be established, and therefore you will not be limited only to one particular application. You will not have to download multiple applications to actually operate on. Today you have to download Ola, you have to download Uber, you have to download Amazon. I mean, Amazon is a different example. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is general. Amazon is also, there also we are having a similar kind of concept. But this is actually a unified health interface, similar to the unified payment interface.
I was reading what Devi Shetty has written today on, and he's given examples across sectors, including Ola, Uber that you mentioned, and how it operates smoothly. So he has also talked about the US, and that in the US also it's not a universal system because only in billing the digital system works and not in the healthcare aspects. So do you think in India it's going to work seamlessly?
Yeah, why you guys go on to US all the time?
Devi Shetty did.
No, that's fine. Devi Shetty, he has his own opinion. I'm not contradicting him. What I'm saying is that something which has not worked in US will not work in India is really not, that's not the way to look at these things. US doesn't have any such great payment system which is free of cost, which is frugal, which is instantaneous, which is any bank to any bank. Today also, if you transfer money on a Western Union bank, you pay dollars as a transfer charge. I can transfer 1 rupee to you and without paying even a single naya paisa to anybody. I mean, look at it. Because our systems are interoperable, frugal, population is scale. Our systems have a different philosophy altogether. Please understand that.
So do you think the acceptance of this card will be more in private hospitals or in government networks?
There is no card, Nivedita. I mean, we have been saying that since Aadhaar days. Aadhaar is a number, not a card. Similarly, health ID is a number. It just
digital health ID.
Card is essentially card. I always used to tell an analogy. Card is like a body, and number is like the spirit.
Yeah.
So basically, it can be written on a piece of paper. It can be written on your clothes or whatever. Right? That's not important. You can just write it down in your mobile phone. Just plug it. So just a number. So
yes. So will this ID work in the private hospital?
It will work everywhere. It will work everywhere.
What is the feedback you've got from the private hospitals right now on this?
So right now we are going to start this process throughout the country, right? Till now we were proving the concept and we were working with the hospitals in the union territories, and there are not many private hospitals. For example, Chandigarh, Puducherry, Andaman Nicobar, Lakshadweep. These were the places where we were working on, and I think we have been creating registries of doctors, registries of hospitals. Those things have been going on. So look, the point is, we will evangelize it. We will basically promote it because it's a win-win for everybody. And I think the hospitals, the entire health facilities will see the value of it. So and because it breaks the silos, it breaks the monopolies, it breaks the winner takes all situation. So that is going to be the major strength of this protocol-based network.
For Ayushman Bharat, 2020 was considered almost like a 0 year. So how has 2021 been for Ayushman Bharat?
2021, as you know, from March, April, May, these 3 months, which actually saw the huge second wave, they were also quite a dip. You must have seen the figures. Also, I can send you the graph also. There was a dip in the number of admissions. But I think now we have picked up, and we recently celebrated 2 crore beneficiaries, 2 crore sort of hospital admissions. Now the number is 2 crore 15 lakhs. Now we are going to accelerate the implementation of Ayushman Bharat in the sense we are working on 4 areas. One, we are working on making people more and more aware about their entitlements and rights, and therefore we are creating small plastic cards for them, which we call Ayushman cards, and we are distributing them free of cost to the beneficiaries, so that when they get sick, they go to the hospital, they can just show that card, and so that they are not thrown out of the hospital. The hospital doesn't say, "Tumhara number nahi hai, tum nahi ho," matlab, so that they know that they are a part of that entire sort of beneficiary base. Number one. Number two, we are actually increasing the hospital empowerment also. So more and more private sector hospitals are going to come into Ayushman Bharat fold. What we have done is we have rationalized the rates of as many as 600 plus benefit packages. So that's one very important thing, and I think that will help more and more private sector hospitals come to the Ayushman fold, because their complaint has been कि भाई हमारा rate बहुत खराब है, हमारा rate ठीक नहीं है. That is what we are doing. Similarly, also to incentivize the private sector hospitals, we are giving them some incentives. If they are NABH approved, then we are giving them some percentage higher rate. So that's another area. Lastly, we are also ensuring that the turnaround time of the reimbursement claims is reduced. So we are basically saying, hospitals used to say that, all right, we have invested the money, we have provided all the help to the person, and now we are going to now this is you are not paying us the money, you're taking so much of time. So I think 15 days is the maximum amount which we are allowing. Also, we are incentivizing hospitals, and those hospitals where from we have heard no complaints of any kind of fraudulent withdrawals and attempts like that, we are putting them in green channel. And green channel means that as soon as the Ilaj is complete, we will provide them 50% of the claimed amount immediately. So that also will reduce their cash flow problem. So these are some of the steps which we are taking to ensure more hospitals come in, more patients also come in, and we are able to increase the coverage of Ayushman Bharat to all the beneficiaries. That's what I want.
Dr. Sharma, what is the current private sector participation, and is there a target of how much we want to increase it?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Ruchika. The current private sector participation is around 55% approximately, and the number of hospitals is also around 50%. So I think, I have seen, for example, lot of enthusiasm in the private sector hospitals during COVID times also, because we have involved them into vaccination program also. So that is what.
What about states, Dr. Sharma? How many states are left to be covered?
Nivedita, I now have to, states, you see, 33 states are already union territory, are already there. Only three, states, which is Delhi, Odisha, and West Bengal, they are not a part of Ayushman Bharat, but the rest are. In fact, Telangana was added in this current fiscal year itself. They came on board, and now they are our partners. So that's how it is happening. We fund 60% of the numbers which are there in the socio-economic caste census number of those people who are eligible for Ayushman.
Just one question on vaccination. Vaccination certificate has been a big issue and it is being talked about. What is the big problem there? What is the hurdle in the UK?
No, it has not been a big issue. I don't know. I think that issue has already been clarified by everybody. That the news which was playing around in the media all around was that Covishield is not an issue, but certificate process is an issue, which we have clarified that certificate process is not an issue, and that the Excellency, the High Commissioner of Britain also clarified. I had also written an article in Economic Times yesterday. So I think that is a non-issue, number one. Number two, with regard to the certificate, our certificate process is as robust as any country's certificate process can be. Let me tell you, there's nothing lacking, number one. Number two, we have all the attributes available with us to be put on the certificate. The only thing which is a little deficiency, you may call it, or you may call it, whatever you may call it, the only minor difference, and which is also, by the way, voluntary, it's not compulsory minor difference as per WHO standard, is the full date of birth. We are actually collecting only year of birth, and that is coming out of the basic, minimality of the data collection. Sometimes, in the villages, people may not know exact date of birth, and they will be difficulty. And initially, Aadhaar letters also mentioned, though they have the full date of birth, but they mention only year of birth. So basically, we are collecting year of birth. Now, for international travelers, what we are doing is, you please plug in your month and date as it exists in your passport. And then, you can download the certificate, which is WHO standard, so as to comply or so as to ensure have the full date of birth. That part we are making it live maybe today or tomorrow.
And, you recently recorded 20 million plus vaccination in a day. How has the experience been, and what is the level that you're willing to take the number up to?
We are doing absolutely fine. Yesterday also we recorded more than 1 crore. So 1 crore seems to have become a norm.
New normal.
Yeah, new normal. So it is going on very well, and our platform is sustaining. And now, if you have seen the latest homepage of COVID, as also the dashboard picture, we provide actually the real time sort of tickers for the vaccines, first dose, second dose, registrations, vaccinations. So it has been made very interesting. And I think you will like it. Just have a look at it.
What will the new record be?
No, I can't give a record.
Any number that you're looking at?
I am not a number guy. I am the person who is operating the platform. So I have never answered the questions about what will be the number, how has it been playing out. That's not important. Important is the platform is recording the numbers, issuing certificates. It does everything end to end. The vaccination program is the most systematic, most orderly, and most reliable, most sort of non-repudiable digital sort of process which has been going on in anywhere in the world.
Is there any shortage in the system now? Vaccine shortage is? Do you think?
No, I don't think so, but I mean certainly not. I mean, you must have seen the figures. I mean, our health secretary comes on he gives the press conference almost every day, and he comes up with what is the stock available in these states and all that. We are very comfortable with that.
How are you seeing the demand of vaccines now?
Oh, that's wonderful. Demand is, 1 crore a day, yaar. Matlab, the whole 1% of India's population assembles in one day and gets vaccinated. The other day, the Swedish trade commissioner had come and met me, and she was saying that, oh, you guys are vaccinating entire Sweden in one day because their population is 1 crore. So that's what is happening. I think we are doing very, very fine. And fortunately, the vaccine hesitancy is more or less non-existent now. And hopefully, we will be able to achieve the target which we have set for ourselves, that by the year end, we will have the coverage, entire universal coverage of all the eligible beneficiaries. I think we will easily do that.
But children vaccination will also begin soon, so that will also have to
That's a policy issue. That is really something not my mandate. My mandate is basically operating this open platform. That I think.
So do you think if the gap was a bit low than 3 months, what it is for Covishield right now, we would be able to cover a lot more population with full vaccination?
अब देखिए गैप लो और हाई की बात थोड़ी गैप हाई और लो तो बनाते हैं डॉक्टर साहब लोग तो जो एक्सपर्ट लोग हैं उनका कहना है कि 12 से 16 सप्ताह का गैप होना चाहिए then it should be 12 to 16 weeks. Who am I or you to really challenge the experts' view? Our honorable Prime Minister has also said many times that we go by the opinion of the experts.
So with no sign of a third wave right now, do you think we are at the end of the pandemic?
No, I'm not the person to make such. I am a doctor of philosophy, I'm not a doctor of medicine.
So by the end of this year, you think the entire country will be vaccinated with at least one dose we will have, not the 2 doses?
And in any case, 1 dose we have already done about 70 crores, I suppose. So I think, we will certainly do it.
One of the main points that emerged from the interview is that popularity of the digital health ID will depend on its features, irrespective of whether it's voluntary or compulsory. Mr. Sharma ruled out any privacy concerns, saying that welfare schemes cannot stop because data protection policy is not there. On vaccination certificate, Mr. Sharma clarified that the absence of date of birth had created confusion and that in a day or two, a format will be in place for international travel.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.